Confronting Financial Norms. That's today's episode. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natali Morris.
And this is the Investing in Real Estate show. This is the show where we talk about passive income, we talk about investing, we talk about buy and hold real estate. That's the vehicle that we use to build passive income. We are in our new studio, although we've been having all kinds of network issues, so you have to sit side by side with me today.
I know. But at least he took a shower. He went swimming.
Yeah, that's right.
Morning,
so I'm clean, nice. Hey, welcome to the show. So today we're on the heels of a big stock market sort of correction problem. Some are saying don't call it a crash because it's nothing like 2007, 2008. But there was quite a pause this week, and that sort of Trump bump, I guess, is gone.
I guess. I hadn't heard any of these terms. You're throwing around so many media terms.
You've never heard Trump bump?
No, I haven't heard that.
The idea, when he came into office, the stock market went up, and he would go out and talk at public events all the time about how, look at the stock market, it's because of me that we're doing so good.
Okay,
so
right.
The Trump bump, the honeymoon is over, but a lot of people saying, look, this was inevitable, right?
Yes.
Interest rates going up, inflation going up.
Right.
What is the Federal Reserve going to do? So this honeymoon is over. Well,
it's so interesting that we blame or credit the administration for kind of market perversions. Anyway, so this is the impetus for this program today, is that, most people think, well, okay, it's not timing the market, it's just time in the market, so I'm just going to ride it out, right? But when you really start to look at that over a graph, okay, where do I get in and out and how is that going to affect me? It's really usually very depressing, right?
Right. Well, it's really upsetting, especially if people looked at where their money went during the 2008 collapse. A lot of people had money in the stock market, they had money in their 401ks, and people who were nearing retirement age suddenly had it all wiped away.
Yeah. And
then they retired, and they were left with $5,000, and they had $100, or I know people that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in their 401k.
And then they just sort of wait for it to come back. So usually what I hear, word on the street, because I spend a lot of time walking the street here in Florham Park, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Actually,
that's not a good thing to say.
Right.
She's
I walk the streets
not in
with a stroller usually. I'm digging a little bit deeper here.
The Police wrote a song about Roxanne.
Okay, right. Mm-hmm. What was the point that I was trying to make? Oh, that I'm so street that I hear these things all of the time, is that some people are like, the stock market's too crazy, I just don't do it. And then other people are like, well, I just wait it out, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that there is a problem with both camps. It's not that you should just not be invested. That's wrong too. So the first belief I wanted to sort of challenge is that you should just save all your money, put it in a savings account. Why do you think we should confront that belief?
Well, I've done a whole episode called Savers Are Losers, because again, the dollar is a fiat currency. It's government-backed currency. Every government-backed currency in world history has collapsed. So if you have dollars, paper dollars, in a bank account, it's not even paper dollars, it's a number on a bank account website backed by the government dollar, which is not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold or silver. We're not on the gold standard anymore. So you're sitting there and saving in some account, probably some terribly low interest rate account, maybe 1% if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. So you've got this money sitting there doing nothing for you, and it's not producing cash flow. Now let's say you had $100,000, you purchased 2 rental properties with that. Now that might be performing $1,600 a month in cash flow for you.
Right. And then you own a tangible asset, right, that you can effect with your effort. So most people don't realize that the money in our economy, only 4% of it exists in paper form. So when you're saving money, you're saving numbers on a hard drive that may or may not be worth anything. And if that money doesn't perform, then you're losing money because inflation is a real thing. So if you sock it away, even in a IRA that's a market index, right? So it's performing around the index of the market, conservatively between 1% and 4%. then by the time you want to use that money, inflation has made it so it's really only worth about 75% the value anyway. So a lot of times, if you're thinking that my savings account is my performing asset, then you're losing the race because the world is moving faster than your money is. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have savings. Of course you should. And I recently, just this week, went on a quest to find the best savings account that I could with the highest interest rate. And it's not easy to do. So most of us, just kind of take the savings account that's linked to your checking account. So the bank sells it to you like, hey, thanks for opening a checking account. Guess what? You get a free savings account with a 0.04% interest, right? It's nothing to write home about. So these beliefs lead us to loser products, and it's just something that we want you to reevaluate when you look into your accounts. And by the way, I found a pretty good savings rate. I found a 1.5% savings account, and I just did some homework on bankrate.com.
All right, so bankrate.com will have some of those. That's great. But again, I think about real estate investing with a 12% net return, 10% net return. Like our new construction that we're buying, that we're doing right now, like about a 9.5%, 10% net return. And then you compare that to a 1% return, which then you don't even get the tax benefits. You don't get the tax shelter that you create with real estate investing as well. So
no, they tax your interest.
They tax your interest.
Right.
So not only are you making almost nothing with a savings account, you're also then being taxed, and you're not building a net asset, a cash flowing net worth asset to add to your portfolio.
Although Clayton and I always have to hide our, sort of savings accounts from anyway, because he always wants to buy real estate from it. So I think most financial advisors will tell you to keep 6 months of living expenses in a savings account. And most of the time I have to hide the passwords from Clayton because he's like, oh, we have that. Let's invest it. I'm like, no, that's our emergency fund.
Yeah, that's healthy. That's certainly a healthy way to look at finances. All right, so that's number 1 in that list. Now, what's number 2 on your list?
Okay, number 2 is that you should automate your savings contributions, and that's how you build your savings. So it's not that that's not a good idea. It's a fine idea. But if that's the only way that you're building your assets, then again, you're losing the race.
I remember the book, and it was a book that I thought at the time changed my life. And it did help me kind of get my head around some of my debt at the time. It was David Bach. David Bach wrote a book called The Automatic Millionaire. And I remember reading it when I lived in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio, where we actually do some great investing now. And it was funny, you'd set up an ING bank account.
Yeah.
And you would just save like $25 a week or something. He also told you not to buy Starbucks lattes, the latte factor. It was a lot of this stuff. If you actually ran the numbers, there's no way you could actually have built wealth. I mean, there were some great things. There were some smart little savings things in there. But at the end of the day, this was not a wealth building book, like this sort of idea of just automating some of these things. Yes, it's nice to put a little away. Like we're putting a little away for our kids' school every week. And we're putting it into that savings account that you just talked about.
1.5%. Yeah.
Because I really wanted to hit that. I said, look, we have to pay this amount each year. Let's just kind of front load that and make that happen. But yeah, just sort of the idea of automating your savings and that's all you'll need to do is total garbage.
Right. And also, I was thinking about this in terms of Clayton just reread Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think it's something that he likes to refresh himself on every week. Not every week.
Every week. Nonstop. You're reading that book again?
He can quote it, but he can quote long passages from it. And one of the quotes that, don't show that off. One of the quotes that he sort of brought home the other day as he walked into the kitchen, he's like, this thing really, I just sort of forgot how brilliant this was when he says that the rich buy assets and the poor buy liabilities. So if you are in this mindset that I only just automate some contribution to a savings and then the rest of my money is going towards all of my living expenses, you're losing the race, right? Because that means you've taken a small percentage, as much as you think you can spare, and then the rest of it is going into liabilities that you've agreed upon, like your car payment, your credit card payment, your student debt, and your mortgage, right? So then most of your money is going into your buying of liabilities, and only a tiny sort of automated percent is going into your savings account. You got to flip those, right? If you flip those, you're really building wealth. You're losing the race. You have to think about wealth as like, some people are running this race like a marathon and really making progress and realizing how to move the ball forward and pace themselves. And some people I don't know, whatever. You finish the metaphor. It makes sense in my head.
No, I'm not going to finish that metaphor, but it's a great that switching that paradigm around how you're building wealth. I mean, and we have this safety net idea.
Right.
The idea of the safety net is that you get a job, you have a 401k, you put away some money for savings, save 6 months of your job money. I love that idea too, right? Which is like save for an emergency 6 months of your job salary. Okay.
No, it's 6 months of your living expenses. And I think that that's kind of like if you lose your job and you can't find another one, or natural disaster hits and your insurance payment doesn't come. That's not. Are you really going to challenge that one?
Well, I'm going to challenge people to think about that, right?
Okay.
What would make better sense? What are your I talk about our freedom number. So
right.
What is your monthly expenses? Is it $4,000 a month in expenses? Is it $7,000 a month? What if you could, based on the amount of money that you're putting away for your rainy day fund, started thinking about intelligently investing in real estate? The idea that you need to use all of your own money is total garbage. There's so much money out there, private money and other people's money, that you could be pulling these assets into your portfolio to create wealth.
Right.
So instead of thinking about 6 months for a rainy day fund, why not have $4,000 a month in cash flow coming in so you don't have to worry about losing that job? The safety net of the job is total garbage. So yes, that is the metaphor that I'll kind of continue and wrap it up. All right, so number 3 on your list, never touch your 401k.
Yes. And so this is one of the things that we really get people write us hateful tweets about. Do you get that? People on my, if I say you might want to borrow from your 401k, people act like I've said your kid should smoke pot for lunch or something. Like they find it so threatening. And I think that's a large part because the marketing has really worked on us and told us that the 401k is your
it's the saving grace.
Sacred chalice that
right.
If you touch it, then the walls are going to cave in, like Indiana Jones kind of thing. Like right. People really fall for that. And once you are fluent in financial product evaluation, meaning you can look at the things you own, like your IRA and your 401k and your savings accounts, you won't be all that impressed with your 401k. Tell the story of when you tried to cash out your 401k last.
They wouldn't let me. So now there's a difference between borrowing.
No. I mean, when you left Fox and you said, I want to take this 401k and put it in a self-directed IRA. And they said to you, oh, really? Tell that story.
Yeah. And the guy told me, he's like, well, we perform it like with our own accounts, perform at about a 2%, or was it like 2 or 3% return?
He said, oh, but you can keep it here because it was hosted by Fidelity and it was in Fidelity mutual funds. And he said, well, you can keep these assets and roll it into an IRA since it's no longer an employer-sponsored account. Now you can just have it as an IRA. So it's your own account and we can keep it in the same funds it's already in because it's performing at 2%.
Yeah,
and
like
he
I'm looking at your historical
expected
data.
you to high five him over 2%.
2%. I'm like, hey, buddy, do you know what I do for a living? I buy real estate with a net return between 9 and 12%. That's net. Now my gross is like 18, 19, 20%. So and he's like, oh, I didn't realize you did that. He goes, yeah, we can't touch that.
We can't compete with that. Go ahead. Go do what you're going to do,
right.
buddy.
Well, so this paradigm, this idea of your 401k, I mean, you borrow from it, right? Borrow as a loan to yourself. You're not getting a withdrawal penalty. I think that's where the ignorance comes in around the 401k. People, when they hear, take money out of your 401k.
This is a different tactic we've talked about.
They think of it as that I'm going to get a withdrawal penalty of like 25% or some sort of fee.
And be taxed on it. Right. It's a totally legal loan. You give a loan to yourself. You do whatever you want with it. In fact, we took some of it and paid off some unfavorable debt. We had credit card debt. I think we had like $20,000 in credit card debt at a 17% interest rate. That sucks, right?
That's a liability.
So if we then take money out of a 401k and we've set a 4% interest rate, well, now we're not paying 17% to the credit cards. We're paying only 4% on that debt. But to us, now we're the banker. So we make that interest back, not the credit cards.
All right, number 4 on the list.
Number 4, mutual funds are the safest way to save. And I get this a lot on my Twitter stream.
I heard this growing up.
Ramsey says.
Yeah, go to, was it Vanguard? It was like a Vanguard fund. It's a good mutual fund. It's really safe. It's a good investment. Mutual funds. Dave Ramsey says to do it.
Right. And mutual funds are just a collection of stock, right? It's sort of stock for dummies. Because
with high fees.
Right. They think that if you don't know how to cherry pick stocks, which also is exceedingly hard, then we'll just do it for you and we'll put together sort of a mix of stocks, but that's still keeping you in what's basically an index of the market. Now, they can be heavily favored towards one thing or another. Some mutual funds are agriculture, some are foreign startups, some are domestic startups, right? And they're just sort of more heavily mixed into those things, but most of them do have kind of like, it's like a mirepoix, like a, you know what that is? A mirepoix is like what you start your soup with, is like carrots, onions, and celery. Like there's sort of this baseline of what is in every soup. Like there's sort of a baseline of what's in every mutual fund. It's like McDonald's and AT&T and right? Like,
GE, yeah, exactly.
But then they sort of pepper in like different types of things. So you think, oh, I'm really heavily invested in foreign commodities or whatever, which is true. I mean, so many of them are really expensive. You're taxed on the earnings every year. You think like, oh, I just own this, right? But you actually pay taxes on the capital gains inside of your mutual funds. And it's just, to me, it's something that you cannot affect. So it's a very passive way to own it. It is a performing asset, but it's in the way that we evaluate them in our family, they're kind of duds.
All right, number 5 on the list is taxes. You brought up taxes. So another sort of myth or a way to rethink your investing or finances is that taxes are a fixed thing, that's something you can't ever change.
Right.
And that's total garbage, because real estate investors, if you're smart, don't pay taxes. As Robert Kiyosaki talks about all the time, I'm a real estate investor. I don't pay taxes. As Tom Wheelwright reminds us, if you're a smart real estate investor, you should be paying 0 in taxes. And there are reasons for that. You purchase hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of real estate, you now have a huge tax benefit from owning that huge tax shelter to offset your other income. There's all sorts of creative ways to play with the tax code that benefit real estate investors. And now additionally, an additional 20% deduction under the new tax law.
And I was always sort of the opinion, well, as your salary gets bigger, taxes are just no big deal because there's enough money. And that's actually exactly opposite thinking, right? Because, and now as we look at the new GOP tax law, we notice that doctors and lawyers who are W-2 employees, they may have a salary that matches ours as investors, but because of the way their estate is set up, because they take a paycheck, they get taxed so much heavier than we do because we have a small business inside of our family, because we are investors and entrepreneurs. So anyone who sets up their estate in such a way that's favorable to their taxes is making a ton more money, even if our sort of gross number is the same, right? Because as Robert Kiyosaki points out, taxes are an investor's biggest expense. And it's one of the things they teach you in graduate school and in business school. Number 1 lesson is how to minimize your taxation. So it's not something that you're just like, well, this is the bill and I pay it. If you're in that mindset, again, you're losing the race.
Right, and the tax code is written to benefit investors who own a business owners who invest, and specifically business owners who invest in real estate. That's the number 1 way to build wealth in this country, because the tax code makes it so. It's not just me sitting here at Morris Invest saying, it's the number 1 way to build wealth is real estate.
It is a little bit that.
It is, but it's on the
It's
on the backs of facts. So like, owning raw land, that's great. But guess what? How about a cash flowing asset sitting on that raw land, a bank that's producing monthly cash flow that you get to write off on your taxes with an additional 20% now in this GOP tax law? So this idea that taxes are this sort of fixed thing, there's only 2 things. What is it? 2 things in life: death and taxes.
Death and taxes. There are 2 certainties.
If you're a real estate investor, the only certain thing is death. So taxes, you can learn how to understand and manipulate it legally to benefit you. It's written that way on purpose. That's why most members of Congress own real estate. So there you go. Those are the 5 things. Any final thoughts?
Those are 5 things we would like you to challenge. But I'm sure when you look at your own balance sheet, there's plenty of things that you see there that you can think, well, I think this is untouchable. But Let me challenge that and let me look at it for its merits. So hopefully this inspires you to do just that.
So thank you so much for subscribing and becoming a family member here with our Investing in Real Estate show. We love all of the feedback. We love all the great comments that you leave in the comments thread and the 5-star reviews. Thank you so much. We're doing a lot of live streams from the new studio here. We're so excited about it, and still working out some of the kinks with the network. That's why she has to sit next to me today. But, she has to do that once in a while. So we'll see you next time on the Investing in Real Estate show. Now go out there, take action, become a real estate investor. We'll see you, everyone.